Hello, back out on the tube on the Underground. If I was to say to you how many Underground stations in London are named after pubs, how many would you say? The answer is actually 6, and today we're going to go on a tour around the network, take you to those 6 locations and give you a little bit of history about them as well. And our first stop out of 6 is at Elephant and Castle, a name that's had whole essays written about it as to how it came about. But the most likely is the most boring, in that an elephant with a castle on top was a common motif in medieval days. Nowadays, it's a huge gyratory traffic junction. There is of course the Elephant and Castle shopping centre and market, but the tavern here that was called the Elephant and Castle was present 250 years ago. The first tube station, what we now call the Northern Line, didn't arrive until 1890, whilst the Bakerloo Line station arrived even later in 1906. And if you cross the road from the shopping centre, then yes, you do find that there is still a pub here today called the Elephant and Castle. Although this isn't the original pub either, this was a 1960s rebuild which in itself closed. It was only due to a local campaign that a few years ago in 2016 that it reopened. So the Elephant and Castle does have a pub called the Elephant and Castle. Back onto the tube and up the Northern Line to the station which famously has the longest escalator on the network. That's right, we're at Angel, where for many years the Angel Coaching Inn stood at this important crossroads in North London. The inn itself is extremely old, dating back to ancient times, but seems to have changed its name to Angel in the year 1614. And this is the site of where it was. It's now a cooperative bank. Can't buy beer there. At least I don't think you can. Oh, and the Angel pub that is next door to the original location now is a modern day Wetherspoons, and obviously not the original inn. Okay, on to pub number 3, and for this we've gone a little way north up the Piccadilly line to reach Manor House. The Manor House Inn, as it used to be known, opened here at the start of the 19th century, and was a highly frequented stop along the Green Lanes Turnpike, including Queen Victoria in 1843. It's named after the local manor house of Brownswood, and in the 20th century it became a music venue hosting bands such as Rod Stewart, Jimi Hendrix and Fleetwood Mac. And today it's here, it's this organic grocery store and a cafe, but this is where the Manor House Inn used to be, on this rather slightly dull, very urban, nondescript crossroads. The royal connection later continued, as after the Underground opened here in 1932, the future king that would later abdicate, Edward VIII, once drove a tube train between here and Wood Green. Next up is a trip along the Circle and Hammersmith and City lines to get to Royal Oak Station. So at Royal Oak, if you come out and turn left, crossing over the GWR main lines here, and the pub, not actually called the Royal Oak anymore, it's just down here. And it's just here, and it used to be called the Royal Oak, and it's now the Porchester, because we're on Porchester Road by Porchester Square and Porchester Hall, so at some point it was renamed to the Porchester, but this used to be the Royal Oak. Royal Oak is actually the 3rd most common name for a pub in Britain, and the pub was built here in 1871. Sadly though, we don't know why or when it was rebranded to be named the Porchester. Tube stop number 5 in our sort of pub crawl takes us along the always cosy Bakerloo line to Maida Vale. It's a gorgeous classic Leslie Green designed station with great features, and the whole area takes its name from the hero of Maida pub, which stood by the Regent's Canal on the Edgware Road. That in turn was named after a General Stuart, the victor of the Battle of Maida. The pub, however, closed in the 1990s. And for the 6th and final station on the Underground that's named after a pub, I hopped onto the Jubilee line to take me up to Swiss Cottage. Built in the 19th century and originally known as the Swiss Tavern, it served as a coaching inn on the then newly built Finchley Road and soon became a popular landmark at this busy road junction. And it's still here today. This is the oldie Swiss Cottage. It's not the original, it is a rebuild, but it's on the site of the original pub, which the tube station was named after. So there you go, that's all 6 tube stations in London named after pubs. All of these, by the way, here comes a plug for a Londonist book, A Listed in Londonist Drinks, a spirited guide to London libation.